Hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Debbie Watts and this is Aracula Card Art. What are we going to do today? We are going to make some CAS, clean and simple Christmas cards. As you can see, this is my card for today. It's free hanging baubles and just a very simple plain season's greetings or Merry Christmas. You can put the sentiment of your choice onto this card. You can make it with your own colours. So let's get going. And what do I need to make this CAS card? I have a 15 by 15 centimetre white base card. This is 300 GSM. For your card base, I wouldn't really go any less than that, especially if you're not strengthening it with a layer, because if you are going to use a heat gun, it can buckle. And I'm not going to fold that, but I'm going to use it flat, but you can obviously do this card folded. I've got a few colours of your choice. These are just mine for today, to colour in the baubles. I have some clear embossing powder and a catch tray. I've got a grey pen. On the card there is just a shadowing effect, so this grey pencil is to just create a shadow. I've got a fine black highlight pen or fine drawing pen. I've got VersaFine Clear. I'm using this because it's a wetter ink, and when you stamp with this, the clear embossing powder over the top and heat set that will really kind of make it pop. You use another black ink and you have to be really quick, and possibly the embossing powder is not going to catch onto that because the ink's going to be too dry. So VersaFine Clear is a really good wet ink to use. Stamps you'll need. Couple of choices really. I have a circle stamp here, and this is, believe it or not, going to become my bauble. Plain and simple. If you do have a bauble stamp set, like the one I've got here, what's this? 2J's Stamp Co. As you can see, this one has got various designs of baubles, and you've got your hanging cord. So don't panic. This card I'm making today really does not need you to go out and buy a bauble stamp. You can achieve this purely with a circle stamp. Haven't got a circle stamp? What else can you do? So this is the circle that my stamp produces. So you can see it's a really small circle. Haven't got a circle stamp, so don't worry. I've used a circle die, and I've cut through, as you can see, these are slightly different sizes. I've cut through a sturdy piece of card. I think this is a 400 or 350 GSM. So this can actually be my bauble outline that we can lay onto the card and trace in. So again, improvise with what you have is essential to get your crafty head on. And a sentiment for the centre of the card. As you can see, changing the sentiment changes the appearance of the card. But again, it's clean and simple. So before we actually start making the card, I like to prepare a little bit. The other thing you'll need is a ruler to draw the hanging cords. So I take off the lid so that I'm ready to go when I've stamped and put the clear embossing powder on and get this catch tray ready. Let's take your card. You can actually make this obviously bigger, and you just increase the size of your baubles to make it in proportion with your card. But as I say, 15 by 15 centimetre. And my circle stamp and my VersaFine Clear ink pad. So first of all, what we want to do is create those free hanging baubles. So ink up your stamp, make sure you've got plenty of ink, and you just want to stamp your baubles. So I'm going to do two enough time purely so that my ink doesn't dry that quick and I have an opportunity to put the embossing powder on to the stamped images. Slightly offset it. Grab your embossing powder. As I say, this is clear embossing powder. Lift your card, tap the embossing powder and capture that off into your catch tray. You will see that I didn't actually use a dust pad for the greasing, and maybe I should have done. So, you know, any specks you can just brush off because it is clear embossing powder. So again, it's your preference choice there. Okay, so I'm not going to heat set that just yet, but it is important, if you aren't heat setting it straight away, to make sure that you don't actually disturb and knock the embossing powder off of the stamped image. So if you don't feel confident doing that, then just take your heat gun and set that. But I'm trying to do as little heating on my card as possible, and obviously that reduces the risk of it buckling. So continue with this and stamp the other images of your bauble. So again, take your stamp. I'm using quite a small acrylic block and pad, so just be careful that you're not getting the ink onto your fingers. I always keep a wet tissue just in case. The last thing you want is obviously any ink splodges. So again, keep your acrylic block because this is quite tiny, clean, and you will have a clean card. So again, stamp the next image, ink up. I'm going to do a low hanging one now, and the final one I'm going to bring up into this cluster. Okay, so take your embossing powder, cover your stamped images. Don't worry if you're going over the previous stamped images, because obviously it's only going to stick where the ink is wet. And just dust off the surplus. Tap the card, and we are ready to heat set that. So let's just deal with the surplus embossing powder. And tip the tray, pop that back into your pot. The last thing we want to do is start melting that whole pot. I've been a bit messy here, so let's just try to get that into there and pop the lid on and put that to one side. So I'm going to warm up the gun first, so that I have less time, more heat onto the card. So just get your gun nice and hot and put, not directly onto the heat but away from the card, so you can actually see how quickly it's starting to turn. So just make sure you're melting all of that embossing powder, and as you can see, the clear embossing powder on the black ink are really making those images pop on the card. That should do. You're probably thinking, well, they don't really look much like baubles. I've just got 5 circles on the card. You can do 5, you can do 3. I always work in odd numbers. But I think because this is a clean and simple card, what you don't want to do is make it look really cluttered. So 3 baubles, 5 baubles, entirely your choice. So how do I make these into baubles? Take your fine black pen, and what we want to do is create each one with a cap. So simply draw a rectangle with your fine pen on each of the one. They don't have to all look symmetrical, same size. Just randomly put the cap on the top. Okay, so if I bring that a bit closer, you can actually see, well, maybe it's a bauble, but still not convinced. Well, just bear with me. So then with your fine pen, just do a little circle loop on each of your bauble shapes. And now you can see, yeah, we are talking baubles here. Again, not looking much at the moment, but don't forget this is a clean and simple card. So we want to create the hanging cords to give the free hanging. So with my same black pen and a ruler, just make sure you've got the clean edge. You want to line up, make sure your card's straight. You want to line up with the bauble hoop and the top of your card and just simply draw a line. You might want to go up and down a couple of times just to make sure. Lift off. Be careful not to drag your ruler to one side, because if you have got some ink on there, and as you can see there is some residue, then that's going to drag across your card. And do that with all of the bubbles. So again, make sure you've got a straight line from the top. Where you're meeting another bauble, make sure that you actually lift your pen off, so you're not going to disturb the image of that bauble underneath. Okay, so let's go down to that line there, lift off and continue with that line. Again, lift off towards you. Just make sure to see there is quite a bit of residue on the ruler, so get a clean cloth and wipe off the excess. And let's just continue that process. You might want to start thinking about what colours you're going to use. You could use modern bright colours, you could use traditional colour baubles, you could actually do probably baubles all of the same colour. So anything goes on this one, and it is really down to your choice. Now with this one here, what I don't want to do is continue the line. So remember I said if you're going to disrupt the image, you lift off the pen and you take the pen back to the card underneath the bauble. And the reason why you do that is so that when you're finished, couple of times on the line, lift off towards you, wipe it. So you can actually see with that longer bauble, it looks like the cord is going behind this bauble. So you're, in a way, you're creating some depth to the card. My choice of colours today, I've got a bright green, a pink, a blue, orange and a red. Not exactly a Christmas red. These are double-ended tip markers. You've got your bullet point, fine, and you've got your brush. So I'm going to use the brush end of these today. If you are using pro markers or alcohol pens, just make sure, test on a scrap piece of similar card, that your pro marker or your other alcohol pen isn't going to bleed through to the underside of your card. The last thing you want to do is do a beautiful card and when you open it you can see the baubles. So test on a scrap piece of card. I think these markers here are water based. So take your marker and do some colouring. With your markers, make sure that you hear that solid click to make sure you've got your lid on. You can do this with watercolours, you can do it with paints, entirely your choice really. But as I say, just make sure that you're going to do a test if you're not confident with your markers that it isn't going to bleed through. I'm going to use my blue now. It's quite a nice blue. Solid click on, and the final bauble. It's quite a pale orange here. Okay, Okay, clip on, put your markers to one side. We are going to add the sentiment. I've got Merry Christmas here. This acrylic block has got some fine lines on, so it helps me to position the sentiment onto my block to make sure it's nice and straight. Who wants a wonky sentiment? So take your sentiment, take your ink pad, ink it up, make sure that you've got some good coverage, a couple of dabs, and line up. You can put this anywhere on the card in this section here. Might be interesting to put it down at the bottom. Your choice really. So I'm just going to place this off center. So just pop your stamp down, some light pressure. You don't need to push really hard. You tend to rock the acrylic block. Who wants to rock the block? Because obviously that's when you get double stamping, because the smallest lift off, you will never contact the paper with the stamp in the same position. So you get that double, almost like a blurred image. Lift off, and there is your Christmas card. So what options from this I've got is, I think, glossy accents to really make those baubles pop, or you could coat them with a diamond stickles or a different type of glitter gel. So for the moment I am going to do these with glossy accents. So taking your glossy accents and squeeze and just cover your bauble. It does look quite opaque when it's wet, but when it dries it will dry clear. Okay, so each of your baubles staying inside your circle image and give them a coating. That also will help give it almost like a 3D effect as well. And of course you will need to put that aside to dry. So this is your first Christmas card, and as you can see, clean and simple, and it's so quick to make. Remember I said that if you haven't got that circle stamp tool, you can still make this card, and to do that you just need a circle metal die, punch or die cut the hole into a piece of sturdy card, and this then becomes your stencil. Okay, so place that on your card where you want your bauble. Take your fine pen and just draw around your circle. Okay, lift off the card, reposition, and draw your next bauble. Okay, really easy to do. So inexpensive if you don't have a bauble stamp. The good thing about a circle is that it doesn't have to be straight, because it's always straight. Where should we put this next one? Let's put that there. No, I want to put the sentiment there, so I'm going to put that slightly risen there. Okay, obviously with the pen version you won't be able to use the embossing powder, obviously because this isn't wet enough for the powder to stick. Okay, so what you just need to do is I always give that a blast just to keep it dry, so that you're not going to smudge the card at all. Heat the card from underneath as well, and that just reshapes the card for you. Take your ruler and you want to draw the lines, so let's pop the blocks in place with a hanging loop. Okay, and draw the lines. So again, from the loop to the top of the card, just make sure it's clean. Don't cut through the image, so lift off and rejoin the line. Keeping the ruler clean. So this one, because of the position, we want to make sure we don't cut through 2 baubles to get to the third one. So from the top to the first image, in between the second and third, and down to the final one. Okay, and last one. So you can see how quick that was. Take your markers and colour your bauble. You've finished colouring your baubles, you have stamped your image. This variation I am going to create glitter baubles, and to do this I'm going to use stickles, and it's a glitter glue, so any wet glitter glue will be fine. Sometimes these do get bunged up, so we always have a pin handy just to clear the nozzle. Give it a wiggle. Because of the glitter, sometimes they do get blocked up. Okay, you might have to hold this upside down so that the glue comes to the nozzle, but just then, as you did with the glossy accents, take your glitter glue and go over the bauble image. Okay, remember, try to stay within the actual image, and as you can see that's already got bunged up. So take your pin down to the nozzle and just free it up. Try not to squeeze too much on there. If you do, it just takes ages to dry. So just add the glitter to each of the baubles. The final part to this bauble, although you can send this card as it is I like to create some shadowing to the bauble. So for this you do have to make sure that your glossy accent or your glitter, if you use that, is perfectly dry, because otherwise the last thing you want to do is smudge that glossy accent or glitter onto your card. And imagine the light coming from right to left. So take your pencil, and what we need to do, and you might want to turn your card upside down to do this, is just colour. It's a very, very fine grey. You just want to create like a shadowing effect. As I say, it's a slight grey, pearl grey, I think this one's called. So you don't actually want a bold colour, and it just creates like a shadowing. I will bring this up closer to the camera so you can actually see what I'm doing. It doesn't have to be really neat. Shadows form their own shape depending on the image and the direction of the light. Okay. So as you can see, there is just a faint shadow now to those baubles. Rather than use a grey pencil, you can actually use a marker pen, but as I said, just be careful, it's not going to bleed through to the inside of your card. So take your pale pen. This does dry lighter, but you probably see better what I'm actually trying to do. Okay, so I've just created like an image on the bauble to create a shadow. Now for the envelope, you can either keep this plain or you can repeat the process and just pop a couple of baubles on there. If you are using the ink, you can use your embossing powder, tap off the surplus, warm your gun, pop your pot to one side because then you're not going to melt the whole pot, and just heat and set that embossing powder. Okay, so as this is your envelope, it doesn't really matter whether it does bleed through or not. Just take your markers or your colour medium and just put the colour. And don't forget your caps and your hanging circle. I'm sure it's got a name. And then your cords. Lift when you pull it off. Remember not to drag across your paper. I think that just makes a plain envelope quite special. We haven't really taken that long at all to create these magical Christmas cards, clean and simple. That's the order of today. Really great for batch making. You can do the stamping in all of your images, then create your bauble and hanging lines all at the same time, pop your sentiment on, stamp them all, and then batch colour them all. Then you can glossy accent them all and glitter them all if you want to. So you can do each stage of this in batch and you've soon created many, many cards. Just like to say thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you've really enjoyed it. Put any comments on for anything you'd like to see in the future. If you could like and subscribe, really, really would appreciate that. And I hope you come back to join me for my next video. Until then, thank you again and happy crafting. Goodbye.